there's no chapters in this book. That's right. This is a chapterless book. It's 316 pages, and I have not seen a chapter so far. I've thumbed through it. I can't find any chapters in here. It's just a straight story from beginning to end, which is I think, part of the reason why it's been so hard for me to make progress in it, because those chapter breaks are very natural places to, say, okay, I'm going to read to the end of this chapter, or I'm going to read two chapters today, or, whatever. You can't do that with this book. Instead of chapters, there are scenes. In very short scenes. Some of the biggest scenes I've seen so far, maybe 4 or 5 pages long. Um, it's the there's a lot of characters. It jumps around from character to character, and it's set up like a movie. I would say it feels like a screenplay that was like too long, and so they adapted it into a book, or maybe, I don't know. I don't know Chuck Palahniuk's writing process behind this particular book and why it varies so much from his other books. His his books do tend to jump around a little in style. He seems to be a writer that likes to experiment. There's definitely a very particular tone, that Chuck Palahniuk has, and it's very present. Oh, you know what? I forgot I switched microphones. You probably can't hear a damn word I'm saying. You probably, there you go. That would help. That would help. Oh my god. I am just got off of work, had some dinner, and yeah, not used to being an internet personality. Um, okay, so here we go. Take two. Hi, I'm Ken. Um, and I just wanted to do an update on Adjustment Day by Chuck Palahniuk, aka The Diary of Talbot Reynolds. Um, I just did this with my mic off, without my mic in my face. The mic was on. This was nowhere near my mouth. So let me try and remember what I was saying. So, um, my reading progress in this has been very slow. It was actually a couple months ago I said I was going to read this book. And as you can see by my bookmark, I'm only on 50 pages in. I'm on page 53. Now, for those of you who don't know, the first 50 pages of any book are perhaps the most important pages, because 50 pages is where your agent or your publisher will read to before they decide if they want to read the rest of the book and pursue it. Um, so, kind of in the first 50 pages, you have to kind of get through all of the introduction stuff and have gotten into the action of the story. And it was like so funny because I was reading it, and finally the action started. I'm like, oh, we must be at page 50, and sure enough, it was page 50. So there's a lot of setup in this book. Um, Getting up to page 50, where the real action starts. There's a bit of a hook in the beginning, of action, but it's very brief, and it's just kind of the promise, as they say. that this is going to be a violent and disturbing book. It's Chuck Palahniuk. It always is. If it's not violent, it's at least disturbing in some way. But but anyway, so part of the reason why I think I've had such trouble getting this book to getting through this book, and why I've been reading it so slowly. One, as I said many times, I have been working a lot, and I'm a little tired at the end of the day. I can barely watch TV. That's how tired I am. Usually just zone out on YouTube videos. Um, but I'm trying to get past that. So I've been reading this. Um, the other reason why it's been a little slow going through this book is because there is no chapters. This is a chapterless book. There's no chapter 1, no chapter 2, no chapter 3. There's no chapters. There's not even sections. There's not part 1, part 2, nothing. It's 316 pages long, and it's just made up of scenes. For the most part, so far as what I've read, the scenes are very short. I think the longest scene I've seen is about here. This is probably it right here. So let's count it: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pages. That's the longest scene. Usually they're about a page to 2 pages for a scene, and it's the downside to having these scenes is that, unlike having chapters, it doesn't give you any kind of milestone to hit when doesn't give you any reading goals. So if I'm reading a book and it has chapters, I'll say, okay, I'm going to read to the end of the chapter, and if I'm really liking it, I'll read another chapter or two. Or I might say, oh, I want to read 2 chapters tonight or whatever. Because there's no chapters, you're not reading to the end of the chapter. You're going to get to the end of the scene after every couple of pages. So you can put the book down whenever you want to. You're like, okay, that scene's over. Off to put that down, and who knows when you'll pick it up next. Good bathroom read for sure, because if you're gonna sit on the can for 5 to 10 minutes, you can read a scene or two. That's kind of where it's been residing lately. But yeah, it's because it has scenes instead of chapters. It reads a lot less like a book, and it feels more like a TV show or a screenplay. It seems almost like a screenplay that was adapted to a book. Is the style in which it's written. So there's a lot of characters. I probably have been introduced to, I'd say, like, probably 10 named characters so far in the first 50 pages of the book. Maybe 15. Then there's a lot of characters that will appear. It'll be their first scene, and they could be dead by the end of the scene. So that's the thing too. It jumps around from character to character. There's also a whole bunch of unnamed characters too. Policemen or crowds, groups of people, and Yeah, and yeah, it feels like a Marvel movie. That's the best way I can just describe the style in which they've written. They Chuck Chuck Palahniuk has written this book, um, which is kind of cool. One of the things with Chuck Palahniuk, and I'm a really big fan of Chuck Palahniuk's work, except for Diary. I don't like Diary. I just can't. I can't read it. But I've mentioned that before. Um, but he always is experimenting and trying new things with his writing, with every book that comes out. So you never have that feeling of it being the same old thing every time. Very experimental writer, which is cool. It's always going to give you something fresh whenever you open up one of his books. Um, but anyway, about the story so far. So, Adjustment Day, The Diary of Talbot Reynolds. So, you think Talbot Reynolds is like the main character. As far as I can tell, there is no main character in this book. Nobody has jumped forward as like, this book's about this person yet. I really couldn't tell you who the main character is at 52, 53 pages in. Um, Talbot Reynolds is not a real person. Talbot Reynolds is a fictional character in the world of the Adjustment Day story. He's kind of like John Galt. He's like a John Galt. Talbot Reynolds in this book is like John Galt is in our world that we live in. It's a fictional character that embodies these political and philosophical ideas. Um, it's a vehicle for whoever created Talbot Reynolds, and they have not disclosed who that is yet. Talbot Reynolds seems to be it's somebody's work of fiction. Seems kind of like an indie book, or something. Might even be like an online story. It's not really clear, except for the only thing we know is that some some indie people are making a movie version of the Talbot Reynolds story, and there's an actor who is playing Talbot Reynolds, and that's really the only way that we get to find out who Talbot Reynolds is through this actor's portrayal of this character, and the actor doesn't really know or care who that's kind of the funny part. He doesn't know or care who Talbot Reynolds is. You know, he's just an actor, and he's given this philosophical speeches, and he gives them, and he just whatever the director tells him to do is he's like, okay, I'll do that, but he's like a formerly famous actor, um, who's playing Talbot Reynolds in the movie, and it doesn't even seem like it's a real movie. It seems like they're just using the premise of a movie to give a face to Talbot Reynolds, and get these speeches and this philosophy out into the world, internet, whatever. Um, and the internet plays a big part in this story, even though it's not mentioned very often. But it's brought up now and then that this is kind of like the um, the vehicle for which the adjustment day is operating. Um, so adjustment day is basically, it's a day where everybody is fed up um, with America, and they're just done. They're like, you know what? This is just, it doesn't work. It's kind of like a revolution, but it's not aimed at anyone in particular. Um, and the way it works is there's a list on the internet, right? And if you're if your name gets on the list, if basically the list is, they kill you, right? So you get on this list, and if people, anybody can put anybody on the list, right? And once you're on the list, other people can then vote to say yes, this person should die, um, and and if it doesn't get enough votes within a week, the name comes off the list. But if it gets enough votes, then it stays on the list, and the more votes it gets, the higher up the list it goes. Um, and so it's kind of like a game, right? So the higher the name is on the list, the more votes it has. If you kill that person and prove that you killed that person, then you get however many votes were voted on for that person, right? So if somebody has 13,000 votes, then you kill that person, then you have 13,000 votes. And when you vote on somebody, it counts as 13,000 votes, not one vote, because you have 13,000 votes. So a normal person would get one vote, and the person would get, it would be one vote for the person to die. If you have 13,000 votes and somebody's on the list, you can basically call it, like, that person's going down, that person's going to die. So, yeah, which is so, and that's it. It's basically Twitter cancel culture, but in real life, where people actually die. Um, and that's not the only way people die. Some people are just like, screw it, we're just gonna kill this person, or we're gonna burn this building to the ground, or whatever. People are just doing things. So the list is a thing, but it's not the only thing. It's just everybody's. It's the list is like um, the only order in the chaos and anarchy. So it's a world of anarchy, and anybody can do whatever they want. Um, and but in this anarchy, the list is something that people do because it's whatever. It's like, it's just a game. Um, so this is just getting up to page 53. So far, a very, very interesting book. I'm looking forward to reading the rest. It's pretty cool. Um, I feel like almost like the way it was written, like he was hope. I'm just guessing at Chuck Palahniuk's brain here. I haven't actually heard him say anything about it. But I feel like he was like, ooh, I'm going to sell a lot of copies of this and then pitch it as a TV show to HBO or whatever. Um, but it's kind of happening in real life right now. So I don't know if anybody would actually want to watch a show about that or read a book about it. He kind of did hit the nail right on the head. And if you're wondering, oh well, why isn't anybody stopping them? Why not the police, the army, or anybody? Because they don't care either. Everybody's just done. Um, so anyway, that's Adjustment Day. I'm looking forward to reading the rest. And it's a book by Chuck Palahniuk. Check it out. And if it doesn't sound like your cup of tea, maybe you should check out another one of his books because, like I said, he's got a lot of variety in his writing. So that's my Booktube update. Thank you. I'm Ken.